70 days after that star was seen on the 25th of Elul. It's just like unbelievable. I was so wowed by this that I said, I got to look into this. I got to read that Zohar. I've got to analyze it. I've got to check what's happening in the world, all these dates. And really, if you think about it, you don't have to think too much. If you look at what happened in Syria, it makes absolutely no sense. Here's rebels on pickup trucks with RPGs. As I said, I found out about this really exciting piece of Zohar that relates to what is going on nowadays. I know last week we devoted the entire class to thanking God for the miracles, looking over this year, and especially what's going on with Syria, and seeing miracles, 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 miracles. I'm like, whoa, like we're living in the most exciting times, and people will be like, wait, you live then? How did you react? And we should say, oh, we didn't notice. Oh, we didn't realize. Oh, we saw, but then we forgot it and we got distracted and the next thing happened. So we're like, no, we're not going to say that. We are focusing. We are reviewing a lot of amazing things that God has done over this past year, and especially what's going on in Syria. And then we are thanking God, and we are really excited because we know this has to do with redemption. So that was last week. And maybe if I have time at the end for anyone that missed class, I could highlight some of the highlight. Today we're going to talk about a Zohar. Now, a Zohar, as you probably have heard, perhaps, is the most foundational Kabbalistic work we have. It was authored by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who is buried in Meron in the 2nd century. And the Zohar is structured according to the Torah portion. So there are 54 Torah portions, and that's how the Zohar structures itself, with commentary really sharing deep Kabbalistic truths and arranging it loosely according to the Torah portions. So at the end of the Torah portion of Balak, in chapter 47, on a verse, I see him but not near. Now that is part of the messianic prophecy that Bilam received. Bilam was this wicked, evil, horrible person who was also a prophet, because God gave prophecy to the nation, so they shouldn't say, well, if God gave us prophets, we would also behave. So God said, fine, let's give you a prophet. And the prophet actually led them to immorality in a way that they had never, ever experienced before. But through this filthy, dirty, evil mouth came forth the most beautiful prophecies about redemption that we have in Torah, meaning the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zechariah, Haggai, Malachi, Micha, Habakkuk, are full of redemption. But in Torah itself, we have 3 sources for redemption in Torah. And one of them is the prophecies of Bilam. From this evil person, God gave prophecies of redemption. And one of the famous verses he said is, I see him, but not near. Now, on this verse, the Zohar says a lot. And this is one of the things the Zohar says, and I looked inside, and I looked everything I'm telling you, I, as we say, fact-checked, wanting to make sure that everything I'm saying is very, very, very legit. So it says in the Zohar on that verse that on Friday, the 25th day of the 6th month, the star will be seen. So it's talking about some Friday, the 25th day of the 6th month. The 6th month of the Jewish month is Elul. So it's going to be a Friday, the 25th of Elul, and a star is going to be seen. This year, it wasn't Friday, but it was that night because it was Saturday. So we'll take it as pretty close. It was the 25th of Elul, and there was a comet that was seen. And this comet, which was visible to the naked eye, according to the scientists, is a comet that's on an 80,000 year orbit around the Earth, meaning once in 80,000 years you see this comet. And it happened, as the Zohar said, about 2,000 years before, exactly on the day, the 25th day of Elul. Okay, so that's cool, but so what? Well, if you continue reading in the Zohar, you understand the significance, because the Zohar then says, now again, the Zohar is not writing as I'm talking. The Zohar has a lot of words and a lot of details and a lot of figurative expressions. I'm just giving you the heart of it. But I did read all this inside. The Zohar says that then there's going to be a period of 70 days from seeing that star. And a number of things will happen in the 70 days. And during these 70 days, it says great and mighty wars will be stirring the world, which we've definitely experienced in the 70 days since the 25th of Elul, since September of this year. And a great king and ruler will rise, and he'll be haughty over the kings. And like the whole world's going to be scared of him. And that definitely happened in these 70 days because that's when Trump became president. I mean, of course, January 20th is when he's going to officially be president. But from practical perspectives, that's when he won his office. And that's when the world already started being intimidated by him. And I mean, we see this all over. I mean, since his election, like, the leaders of the world are treating him like he's already the president, and they're scared, intimidated, however you want to call it. Recently, very wealthy Japanese bank investor, whatever they are, pledged with Trump on Trump's side $100 billion to put into the American economy and to create 100,000 jobs. And when this is being announced, in other words, a great surge for the economy. Of course, Trump promised he's going to work on the economy and restore the economy. Trump says to him, why don't you make that $200 billion? And the guy's like, but like the world is scared, intimidated, sensing power, as the Zohar, which was written, I'm saying, some 2,000 years ago, is talking about during these 70 days from that star, a king's going to rise up that's going to have a control over the world. Interesting. Cool. We see how it aligns. But again, still in the end of the day, so what? This is the so what point. On the 70th day, the Zohar says, the Holy Land will shake and shudder. A cave under the ground of the temple will be discovered, from which a fire will emanate and burn the world. And from that cave will grow a branch. I mean, there's different ways of explaining the Zohar. Some say it means a branch. Some say it means a tremendous bird, which is symbolizing Mashiach, the Redeemer. So, wow. The Zohar is saying, 25th of Elul, the star is going to be seen. This year, the 25th of Elul, a star was seen. Then there's going to be 70 days. During those 70 days, this king is going to rise up, this very powerful king that's going to impact the entire world, and the whole world is going to be under him, cowed by him. It says it's going to be a very haughty king, very domineering, powerful king. Well, we saw that over these 70 days is when Trump won the election, and already the world is getting scared and doing things to be submissive to him. And on the 70th day, the Zohar says, the place of the temple is going to shake. It's going to shake for miles around the temple, and then from underneath here is going to come a cave, going to come a fire to burn the world, going to come redemption. So what happened 70 days after this star? Well, if you count, and I counted many times, as I said, I want to make sure everything I'm telling you, I spent a long time working on this because everything I'm telling you, I checked. Wanted to make sure it's very accurate. 70 days after that star was Saturday, December 7th. That night, Saturday night, December 7th, is when the capital of Damascus fell. Most of the papers say it was December 8th, but I searched and I found one that said it happened Saturday night. It probably fully happened Sunday, but it happened, they said already, Saturday night. Saturday night was the fall. How is this what the Zohar said 2,000 years ago? You want to call it a political earthquake, not a geological earthquake. It's the land is shaking. The whole Middle East has completely changed since 70 days after that star was seen on the 25th of Elul. You can almost envision the Temple Mount shaking off this mosque that's been on its back for a few hundred years. This burden of evil, shaking it off, and Damascus falls. Now, why did Damascus fall? Does the Zohar say Damascus? No, this piece of Zohar does not say Damascus. I want to be very clear what it does and doesn't say. But there are other places that connect Damascus as the antithesis of the temple. Temple in Hebrew is Mikdash. Damascus in Hebrew is Damesek. Now again, you're going to have to take my word for it, because we're not Hebrew readers here probably, but Mikdash and Damesek are the exact same letters, just in a different order. Letters express energy. The energy, the life force of something is its Hebrew name, is its Hebrew letters. So if these are the letters, If these are the letters, this is its energy. Mikdash, the temple on one hand, and Jumble, the antithesis, the opposite, Damasek, Damascus on the other. So when one is up, the other is down. When one is down, the other is up. The Temple Mount shook and Damascus fell. 70 days after that star was seen on the 25th of Elul. It's just like unbelievable. I was so wowed by this that I said, I got to look into this. I got to read that Zohar. I've got to analyze it. I've got to check what's happening in the world, all these dates. And really, if you think about them, you don't have to think too much. If you look at what happened in Syria, it makes absolutely no sense. Here's rebels on pickup trucks with RPGs. And they took down this incredibly repressive government. And they've been trying to rebel since March of 2011. Every time they tried, they were so strongly shut down by the government. The government has army, has navy, has air force, has chemical weapons that, yes, they have used against their people over these 13 years when the people are trying to revolt. What happened to the army and the navy and the air force and the chemical weapons? Now, in 11 days, everything collapsed. Literally, what happened to the army? They stripped off their uniforms and they ran, which is so reminiscent biblically of when at that time the greatest army of the world, the army of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, who conquered country after country after country, he conquered the whole known world. And he came to the little tiny country of Judah, of Yehuda, the 2.5 tribes, the larger country of the 9.5 tribes in the north. He already conquered and sent somewhere. They're still somewhere behind the Sambation River, wherever that is. But this little country, 2.5 tribes, he conquered the whole world. They refused to give in. It was like a joke. It was a joke. And there was that 0 hour, if you don't give in by then, and they refuse, because God had given them a prophecy that they would somehow win, they would win. I'm adding somehow, because how is that possible? And that night, says God brought such confusion and fear, and the angels were fighting them, and his army ran. The army of Sennacherib ran. They abandoned their post. They were terrified. And now, of course, in modern times, suddenly this army, I don't know if we could say it's from the angels, but something weird is going on. They're stripping off their uniforms and they're running. They're abandoning their trucks. They're abandoning their tanks. They're abandoning their equipment. They're running. So how did that happen? Since 2011, they've been trying to do it. Obviously, they can't succeed. They've got nothing, and there's an army and a navy and an air force and chemical warfare, and suddenly in 11 days, everything collapses. And it was just amazing to me. The star, like predicted in the Zohar. Trump sounds like what was predicted in the Zohar. The fall of Damascus sounds like what was predicted in the Zohar approximately 2,000 years ago. I'd like to thank Rabbi Reuven Wolf for pointing this Zohar out, that I was able to base all this on his information. So the 70 days were over. The 70 days happened with the fall of Damascus in the beginning of December. What next? Well, the Zohar says that a cave opens up, a fire is burning the world, a fire burnt Syria. So a fire is burning Syria. What does this mean, a fire is burning the world? So in Hebrew, world, again, this you have to trust me for the Hebrew, the etymology of the word world is concealment. The Hebrew word for world is olam, which etymologically comes from the word he'elem, which means concealment. So a fire is burning up the concealments of the world, the concealments, the evil, the blockages are being burnt down. The fall of Syria is beginning or expressing something of this energy of taking down the evil of the world. And then again, it said that from that cave is going to be this big bird, this big branch that's ruling the entire world. And to him, the kingship will be given. This is symbolic of Mashiach, the Redeemer. It says the holy ones will gather to him, which again, the various commentaries on the Zohar, either the very righteous Jews, the tzaddikim, or souls above will gather to him, or angelic beings will gather to him. All the holiness will come to him. At that time, King Mashiach, the Redeemer, will be revealed to the whole world, and to him the kingship will be given. The star, Trump, the fall of Damascus, 70 days after that star. And then it says there's going to be this fire burning out the world, the concealments, the blockages, and redemption. A person can say, well, if all this is happening, you'd think the world would be such a good place now. There's still a lot of tragedies. We still have 100 hostages in Gaza and many other tragic things happening. But the Zohar continues, and the Zohar addresses that as well. And the Zohar says that at the time of the revealing of Mashiach, of the Messiah, of the Redeemer, the inhabitants of the world will find themselves in one distress after another. We've seen that. And those who hate Israel will get stronger. We've seen that. We've seen this surge of anti-Semitism. Then the spirit of Messiah will stir up against them and will destroy the wicked Edom, which symbolizes the evil of Rome, and the entire land of Seir will go up in flames. The entire evil will get destroyed, which this is just, I don't know, it's just unbelievable. It's just so eerily on target. It's unbelievable. So, in other words, what the Zohar was saying, I was basically quoting it, is that people in the world during this time will have difficulties. And the enemies of the Jews will still be trying to fight the Jews. And then Mashiach will come, and the enemies will be destroyed.
Sounds great.
It does. It sounds unbelievable, and it sounds so on target.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so on target, which was so unbelievable to me. And this point the Zohar is making by saying this is a time of a lot of tragedies, a lot of difficulties, and rising anti-Semitism is saying that we see the destructions, the Zohar is saying, and we've seen the anti-Semitism and the tragedies. And that's not a contradiction to the fact that redemption is coming now, because the Zohar is talking about the redemption. Now, again, when we say destruction and burning down the evil, that doesn't necessarily mean with harshness. Obviously, we have destroyed evil this year. We've destroyed a lot of evil. Now, obviously, here with Assad and Hamas and Hezbollah and Nasrallah and Iran, a lot of evil has been destroyed harshly, as it needed to be. But there's evil that still exists now, and that doesn't have to be destroyed with harshness. Destruction of evil doesn't have to be with harshness. We're coming in the Hebrew calendar from the 19th of Kislev. Today's the 21st of Kislev. And the 19th of Kislev is connected to a verse in Psalm 55, where King David speaks. He says, Pada b'shalom nafshi, that my soul will be redeemed in peace. The enemies will become allies. We're going to destroy the evil, but it doesn't mean we're going to destroy the people. We don't have to destroy the people. Some people we do have to destroy, and we did destroy, like Nasrallah, like Sinwar. Those we had to destroy, and we did, and we rejoiced in their destruction. We rejoice in the destruction of evil. But the remaining evil could turn around. And I think we've seen a lot of that lately in many, many, many details. And this amazing thought that the fall of Damascus is fulfilling this ancient prophecy of Mashiach. And I think more than anything, we see this, like, how do we know? Okay, so it happened to be that on the 25th of Elul, there was this star. Okay, yeah, that did happen. And it happened to be that, okay, Trump rose to power or got his power during these 70 days. That happened. I mean, those two things don't necessarily have to be linked. And it happened to be that on the 70th day, Damascus fell, and we could view the fall of Damascus and the realigning of the Middle East as the shaking of the world that the Zohar is talking about. That's going to happen exactly 70 days after the 25th of Elul. We could say that, but maybe not. Maybe it just happens. It just happens. It just happens. I think when we see what happened after, which we did discuss last week, and there's, of course, more and more and more you could say about it, but it's so strong. What happened after Damascus fell? The Jews, Israel, had the boldness and the courage to take the Golan Heights and to bomb and destroy the military might of Syria. Now that is messianic, because how has the world treated us? The world barely or does not give us credence to have the land we have, and for them to destroy the military might of Syria when the world doesn't let us do anything, without, censuring us. Israel had the wisdom to know they had to do it. They had the courage to do it, despite how the world would protest. And the world protested very, very, very little and didn't stop us at all. And even the rebels themselves barely protested. Even when they were egged on, like by reporters, to talk strongly against Israel, they still didn't. Now, these things are very, very messianic. As I'm saying, destroying the evil is very messianic, and taking the land of Syria is very messianic. So when they're destroying that military force and making sure it shouldn't fall into unsafe hands, that's destroying evil. There's so much evil there. It was such a harsh, repressive regime. It was horrible. And now there's potentially evil. ISIS, so much potential evil, and we're destroying its power. We're not letting this enormous force of weaponry get into those hands. So destroying the power of evil, that's messianic. And taking the other side of the Golan Heights is even more messianic. Now, why is it more messianic? Like, who could say, okay, destroying in 1 week the whole Syrian army and navy and air force and air defense and chemical warfare, we get how that's messianic. We're destroying evil. This was drenched in blood and evil, and this potentially very likely could go to evil. All the ISIS and Al-Qaeda rebel groups there, of course. So we get destroying evil is messianic. Why is precisely taking the other side of the Golan messianic? It's really messianic. We have fought so hard for those Golan Heights. In the Six-Day War in 1967, with a lot of losses, we captured 2/3 of the Golan Heights. The world never recognized that we had this land. They always protested. In 1981, Israel finally had the courage to formally annex it. Still, the world ignored it. Trump, in 2019, the first and only country to formally recognize that, yes, this is part of Israel. So America recognizes it. Nobody else does. Now, we took the other third without a shot, without any casualties, without any loss of life. In the beginning, they said they're just doing it temporarily. Now they're saying we're holding on to it for a while. Why is that messianic? Because these lands of Syria are on the other side of the Jordan. The concept I explained, we were discussing Gaza, and I brought in a prophecy from Isaiah. So it totally links to what we discussed then. When Abraham was promised by God the lands of Israel, he was promised 10 nations. When the Jews entered Israel, they got 7. Nowadays, the land we have, the modern state of Israel, is not even the entire 7. I believe part of that 7 Jordan has. But we have most of the 7, though not the entire 7. But we never got all 10. Now, God promised us 10 and we got 7. Like, what's going on? Well, what's going on is that these 7 that we received symbolize the evil of emotion, the 7 evil powers of emotion, and those we are able to transform during the time of exile. So we got them, and we're able to transform them and conquer them. And we did. We got those 7 lands. But the other 3, referred to biblically when Abraham is promised by God as Canaanite, Kenizi, and Kadmoni, those 3 lands we never got, which Kabbalistically, according to Hasidus, is explained that those 3 represent the evil of intellect. And the evil of intellect we can't transform. And for that, we need redemption. So we know the 7 nations we got, and we have most of that 7 land back. And the 3 we never got. Where are those 3? On the other side of the Jordan. The land of Syria is part of the land of the Canaanite, Kenizi, Kadmoni, as is definitely Jordan. And it's actually vast lands. It's tremendous lands. So right now, when the Israeli government, in this act of boldness, in this act of we're not worried about world opinion, we're doing what we need to do, when the politicians are behaving as military, not as political minded, We're focusing on saving Jewish lives, not on the politics of the world, which is amazing. And we've discussed this in the past, how unfortunately this has not happened in the past. So that's also very, very, very messianic. But it's not only that they're being brave and courageous and protecting Jewish lives. They're taking the lands of the Syria, of Cani, Knizi, and Kadmoni. They're taking lands that were supposed to get by the Messiah. And they're taking them already now. So even though this is just a very small piece, but it's very significant, this spiritual concept. So this is such an exciting Mashiach reality. It's so exciting, as I'm saying, I devoted a lot of time last night and today researching all of this because, of course, I wanted to make sure it was all accurate and because it's such spectacular news. I was like, I have to share this with you.
It's wonderful.
It is wonderful. So this small elite group here has news that a lot of the world, of course, they know the pieces. I mean, maybe there's some people that know about the covenant. There's some people that connected Trump. And I don't know if anybody out there knows about the Zohar and the fall of Damascus. And maybe some people connected messianic footsteps to taking the other side of the Golan Heights. But you have this knowledge. You know how imminent redemption is. And you know how the world events are just lining up literally with this prophecy. So what do you think, what do you think you can do about it? What do you think you should do about it? Why do you have this knowledge? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is imperative. And we spoke last week. I highlighted over an hour the miracles that we had seen. And my emphasis point was how Mashiach it is. Of course, as we said, it's a very Mashiach service to celebrate and thank God for the miracles. It also very much relates to Hanukkah. This week starts the holiday of Hanukkah. In general, it says that Chizkiah was one of the most righteous kings, descendants of David we ever had. And it says in the Talmud that Chizkiah was supposed to be Mashiach. He was supposed to be the King Mashiach. But the attribute of God's judgment came and said, no, he didn't thank you for all the miracles you did for him, as I just actually spoke about. This amazing miracle with destroying the armies of Sancheriv, with healing him from a life-threatening illness. And because of that, God said, okay. And he didn't make him the Redeemer. He didn't make him Mashiach. So from this, we learn that thanking, that acknowledging God's miracles connects to bringing Mashiach. Remember, we said all of the miracles that we've seen over this year. And it's very interesting how this piece of Zohar is sort of saying both. On one hand, it's talking about this fire coming out to destroy the evil, and then it's saying there will be difficulties and tragedies and enemies of the Jews will be on the rise. And guess what? We've seen both this year, right? I mean, we definitely saw enemies of the Jews on the rise. We definitely have experienced enormous tragedies starting October 7th and throughout this year. At the same time, we saw so much of this fire of God destroying the enemies. We spoke. Hamas, destroyed. They have a few fighters left. Killing their political head, killing Sinwar, as we discussed at length, how that happened. It's unbelievable, the fire of God that destroyed that evil of Hamas. Hezbollah, which is so much larger in terms of terrorists, in terms of arsenal, in terms of their plans for their version of October 7th, and none of it happened. The fire of God destroyed Hezbollah. They are so weak now. That's seemingly why, on the physical plane, they didn't go and support Assad as they did since 2011 when the civil unrest grew. Hezbollah came. We're partners. We're all part of the Iran axis of resistance. Hezbollah is so weak, they couldn't come and help. Impossible. The crazy miracles we saw with Hezbollah, the fire of God destroying Nasrallah, taking down their entire leadership. Even today, with the ceasefire, still destroying their tunnels. All their precise attacks never happened. Somehow Israel knew before. Somehow Israel destroyed them before. Iran's whole axis of resistance, right? Go back a year ago, October 7th. Iran, how could you touch Iran? God says, don't worry. The president with the helicopter destroying all of their aerial defense, Syria's aerial defense destroyed by Israel now. Iran's aerial defense destroyed by Israel in October. Iran sending hundreds and hundreds of missiles to us. We said the Gulf War, 39 were sent, and that was such a miracle. No one died. 39 missiles. Iran sent twice, each time hundreds, twice. Not one Jew got killed either time. So, like crazy miracles, crazy hand of God. Iran could be destroyed. There's no more axis of resistance. Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria. Netanyahu said today we'll take down Yemen the way we took down everything else. Iran's totally vulnerable. I'm sure any day Israel's going to go and destroy their nuclear power. Thank God for this and recognize how Mashiach this is. The whole thing that happened in Syria, as we've been talking today, insanity. Insane, obvious Mashiach, even without the Zohar. Then you have the Zohar and you put everything together and you say, wow, this was predicted 2,000 years ago. When we know all this, yes, we are thanking God, which is very, very, very Mashiach. We are recognizing the hand of God, which is very, very Mashiach. But we're aware of this. It's not like, sort of like I think when by the story of Esther of Purim, all these crazy things happen. And if you read the story of Purim, it takes 40 minutes, and all the events line up, and it's like, wow, the hand of God. If you lived through it, that took over 14 years, and this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and you don't line up the pieces, and you don't see the hand of God unless you're looking. So we've been lining up the hand of God. We've been seeing event. Thank you, God, for burning the evil down. Thank you, God, for the road to redemption. Thank you, God, that we are alive now. We are seeing this. We are aware, part of the process. We're not just observers. We know we're on the inside. We're part of the process because knowledge is a gift. And we have this knowledge. It's a gift. So what can you do with this gift?
It's a responsibility, Robertson.
Yes, you are
The gift.
absolutely right, Netanya.
Because,
I don't know if
yeah,
everyone heard Netanya because she was speaking a little softly. I'm going to repeat what she said because it's so true. She said, it's a responsibility. I said, it's a gift. And she said, it's a responsibility. And she is absolutely right.
I'll do my best in the, best way possible. But again, I'm only one. And hopefully, with God's help, I'm able to, help.
Well, I think we believe that each person is only one and an entire world. And each one of us, we could always think, well, what difference could I make anyway? I'm just one person. Yes, as Netanya is saying, I can take this knowledge, I can apply it to my home base. I can try to live my life differently or live my life even more focused according to these principles. Can I change a world? We say yes. We say one person can change a world. So Netanya said knowledge is a gift, but it's a responsibility. I totally agree with her. Any ways you're absorbing or understanding that responsibility? Anyone else besides Netanya? I think like the most overarching thing is, wow, Mashiach is so real. And we're living in these times. And for everyone on this class besides me, and we're Noahides. God wants Noahides. Of course, we've discussed how Noahides have such a pivotal role in bringing redemption. Noahides are the world. Noahides are the ones that are giving God his home on the world. And like when I look at this, I think which is why I really focused on this and really spent a lot of time last night and today on this, is because Noahides, yeah, this is real. Mashiach is so real. Noahides are so significant players and movers in making it happen. So if we see world events are in sync, are lining up, if we see a prophecy of 2,000 years ago is lining up, if we see the events of the past year, we can all fit into this model of this prophecy. And then so where do we fit in? We're also players. Perhaps we're also mentioned in the prophecy, though we don't realize it. We're also very significant in our way, each one of us, like Netanya said, in her home or in her work Each one of us. We don't have to, get a loudspeaker and drive around, the streets of our city. In our work, in our home, in our relationships, leading lives more in sync with how would I live when Mashiach is here. That's how I bring Mashiach, by living Mashiach, living my best self, living my higher self. Because if Mashiach is real, if Mashiach is happening, I want to be ready. I want to be part of the process. So when I live it, I'm part of that process. I'm getting ready. And of course, sharing the good news. It's very good news. It's beautiful news. It's positive news. It's exciting news. Of course, you know a lot of information and you might filter what you are or not going to give over to someone. You'll understand what they can and cannot understand, what works for them. But taking what makes sense and sharing the news that people you have contact with. Remember, Robin was sharing with us how she sees this now and the people of her work. And that's been a metamorphosis because, of course, we've known Robin for a while and we've seen how that's metamorphosized in her work, but so too for all of us. If Mashiach is unfolding, the world is also unfolding in its receptivity. But we shouldn't be stuck in the old mindset. Nobody's interested, no one's receptive, shouldn't talk to anyone because no one's going to listen. I say, no, it's a new world order. It's a world order where people are interested, where people want to know, where people are aware of what's going on in the world. And even if they don't know as much as you do, of course, and of course they don't, but just the little they know, there's a lot to look and see the hand of God. There's a lot of details they could know that says the hand of God, the hand of God, the hand of God, the hand of God, the hand of God. There's a lot of ways you could wrap up the pieces for them and show them this is the hand of God. This is God's love for the Jewish people. This is the unfolding of Mashiach. Why should only you know and have the privilege of already getting ready? Let everyone you know be part of that and get ready. Prepare themselves. Be on board. Be partners in the process as well. Natalie?
It's funny you bring up people's interest. I have noticed this. It's so funny. So I work in the semiconductor industry, and I'm in sales. So I have to take vendors out to dinner fairly regularly, and it's pretty amazing how Israel comes up as part of the conversation for dinner almost every time. And
Really?
this is with almost every time. And now, mind you, like Intel and Micron, like these are some, Israel's got some big semiconductor companies in there. And most of these vendors have been there, they've lived there, they've worked there, they've all had more experience over there than I have. But it always manages to come up in conversation. And I don't use it, I'm usually not the one that brings it up. But the minute it comes up, man, we hold on to that and we're on that for an hour.
Wow.
And this
So
is
do you
with
get to
people
bring
that
them
I've
to the godly perspective? Do you share that? Do you bring them to understand it's the hand of God protecting the Jewish people?
So it definitely depends on the conversation because sometimes it's people that I've just met, but then there's been other
And you're
times
trying to do business
where
with?
and you're trying to do business, right? And so you're careful. But but there's been other times where these are people that I've worked with over a couple of years, and so then they start to ask more questions because they're like, "Well, you look religious, but you're not Jewish, so what are you?" And then we get to have the conversation.
Wow.
So it's amazing what and like I don't really cover my hair at work, but I always wear dresses and I'm dressed very modestly at work. I always kind of have my hair up, not like, really out there. But yeah, people notice. And I mean the guys like I never say anything about like swearing, but they know. They can pick it up real quick that I don't swear. Um and so then they usually kind of like keep themselves in check until they've had about 6 beers. So it's just kind of that how people are interacting with you. People, what impact are you having? Almost like, I mean, my cousins love to watch the It's a Wonderful Life movie. And I think that's such a beautiful movie because it shows like even when you think that your life has been an utter failure, you really have no idea the impact that, your life has had and the beautiful family that you've built, even if you feel like a total failure.
That is such a true point for all of us. And what we're talking about here in terms of how we envision this. Okay, this is for everyone. Here's God. Here's the world. Every human being is a creation of God. Every human being God wants to have a relationship with. And imagine how many billions of mankind are estranged from him. Imagine a father where his child is estranged from him. Imagine the joy he feels when the child is reconnected, when the child remembers his father, when the child comes back home. Imagine the gratitude and joy the parent feels for you, for the person that connected the child back to his parent. Imagine God's joy and gratitude for every one of you when you take someone else who doesn't know, knows the wrong thing, is spaced out, and you connect the dots. You remind them of God. You bring them close to God. You bring God as something real in their life. You take them out of the whole other garbage that has murked the waters and just bring it back to God and God's relationship. Imagine God's joy and imagine God's gratitude, pleasure in what you're doing. So for each one of us, it could be different. I mean, if Natalie's saying it's over these business dinners and Robin's saying it's with her colleagues and Natanya's saying bringing it into the home and with her clients and the work she's doing. For each one of us, we're so blessed. We're so blessed we know. We're so blessed we can live lives more like we will by the redemption. And we're so blessed because we can be those people that can connect man back to God and give God that pleasure, give God that joy. And we have such a merit just because we know we have such a merit that we can be that facilitator to give God that joy. And God has such gratitude and joy with us that we're doing that. So I think what Natalie is saying, which again, so she's saying maybe in her specific field, the people are a little more Israel focused because of the technology in Israel. But I think a lot of people over the world are seeing, again, they might not have connected all the dots, but God gets you wherever. Someone was telling me, oh, this big boxer gave like $1 million to Hatzalah, the
Mm-hmm.
people that come, like the first line. People coming when there's any of those tragedies going on there. So people that aren't into the news and they aren't into politics and they aren't into religion, but they're into boxers, okay, this will bring them to be aware. Whoever it is, in whatever way, God wants everyone back. And you have the merit that you can be one of those people that facilitate God getting back with his creation.